people, if you don't, if conflict makes you uncomfortable and you're not willing to deal with conflict on a daily basis, then I wouldn't try to get elected, because you're always dealing with something. And that doesn't mean my stomach doesn't get a pit in it once in a while when I have to deal with it. But, you know, as you guys know from being elected, it's, you just try to say the same thing to everybody. You try to be consistent. And so.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Patty.
Hello, Jim.
So we have Corey, Brenna, so Rick isn't going to be on. I see Mitch. Good morning, Mitch.
Morning.
Corey, Jen is on. Somebody.
No, Heidi.
Heidi's joining right now.
Hey, Steve, I love the buzzer beater shot from the girls' basketball game. That was really fun to see.
Oh, yeah. From the other night.
Good morning, Heidi.
Quite the shot.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
Heidi.
it's tournament time. So.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're just waiting on Chad. And Chris, I guess.
Chris, you know, I'm going to have to check with Chad again. He hasn't joined, you know, I talked to him a couple times, but he hasn't joined us since he's been on. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Could be that our time frame doesn't work for him.
Yeah, yes, that could be. But I thought yeah, I'll follow up on that. I'll make a note of that. So, well, Chris did say he may be a little late calling in because he is up in Fargo. He had to come up to Fargo, and he did send me an email saying, you know, I might be a little late joining. So he said, don't be afraid to start without me.
Well, I think we do have a quorum of the board, so we might as well get going. Appreciate everybody's time today. Hopefully we can get through this in an hour, but we'll see where we are at 12:30. First order of business is our consent agenda, and I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved, Mitch.
This is Patty. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as provided in our packet. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. Gets us to our old business. First item up is our North Dakota Health Insurance Trust updates. Kyle, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so thank you for everybody for, I know sometimes we don't hold the February meeting and we hold a June meeting, but there were just a number of things that the Senate is a lot smarter than the House out in Bismarck. We got done yesterday. I was home by 11 or 12. They're still working on another 40 or 50 bills today. So I appreciate everybody meeting today, and I thought there were a number of things that we should update the board on, and so I'm going to start with the North Dakota Health Insurance Trust. We got that up and running January 1st. Excuse me for a second. We got that up and operating January 1st with 30 political subdivisions and 1 school district. And that was a very big lift, and it was actually, good morning, Chris.
Morning.
So I'm talking about the North Dakota Health Insurance Trust. So we got that up January 1st. We continue to work through the processes in the background in regards to creating more efficiency and being more effective in the process that we put together. I sent out to the board the summary of the program and then some information on our ancillary products, just so that you could see what we're doing and what we're working on. One of the things that has come forward in regards to the trust now is how do we pay how does the board, now there's a board, so it's not an SEC. The SEC works for the board of North Dakota Fit, ND Fit. And so this board, who we work for as the fiscal agent, the administrative manager, how do we get paid for what we do, and how does Hayes get paid for what they do, and then how is that system working together? And so a couple things that we know is that, you know, initially we will get about $4,000. We will get about $4,000 a month right now for the work that we're doing, and as part of the administrative manager. So when I get down to start talking about the budget and stuff going into next year, so we've started to do that. We need to create an agreement, and that's one of the reasons on crossover break here that I came in, and is to work with Brenna and working on an agreement with the board and with his name is Brennan Quintus from Endorf, on an agreement with the board for a contract. And again, getting, as I've probably said to some of you before, getting that up and going and getting all those things in place takes some time. It's hard to write an agreement when you really don't know what you're doing until it gets up and going, and now you can start to identify, so here is our job, here's what Hayes does, and here are the dollars and cents. We agreed to it from a basic framework going forward, and now we're actually in the implementation process. So I think overall, Brenna's doing a fantastic job. Probably knows more about the different types of software, B-Swift and Triumpho and their products than anybody, including the Hayes people. So we're very fortunate for the work that she's doing there. So as we move forward with the trust, we now are in the process of the school districts. Just a couple things I'm going to just throw in there just so the board knows, is that the school districts, we have about 60 school districts. It was a little more than that. We ran into some century code problems. So we have 2 bills in the legislature. The North Dakota Public Employees Insurance people, ND PERS, actually when we were digging into this, I pointed out that if they weren't going to release de-identified data to us, that actually they actually were breaking the law too by releasing the de-identified data to Blue Cross Blue Shield and Sanford for their RFP. But so now they're in front. Now I don't have to do the legwork. They're just in front saying we are going to release this de-identified data. It's been pointed out to us that not only do we need it for our political subdivisions to go out and get competitive pricing, but we also realized that when we do it for our state employees, we probably need to change that language so that we can legally release that data to get competitive pricing. The second piece of it is the legislation to help us with ND Fit that is being worked on is when the ACA came in 2000, let's just say 13, 15 probably, there was a in North Dakota, companies that are below 50 employees, they don't have to release de-identified data. They have been, some of them, but they technically don't have to. And so we're trying to reduce that number down from 50 to 10. And why we're shooting for 10 with the insurance commissioner is that's what school districts use for aggregated data. So if you have a small school district, and let's say you have a child with a certain disability and you have less than 10 students, we typically, I don't know how to say it, don't use that data, or it goes into a bigger group of data, but that school isn't identified if it's under 10. So we're trying to move it from 50 to 10 so that the North Dakota PERS and the insurance companies will have to release that data regardless the size of school, as long as there's over 10 people on that insurance policy. All right, so I can just stop there for a second. I don't know how deep anybody wants me to go or what questions might come up. in regards to the ancillary products that we're using, and then in regards to the health insurance products that we're using.
So quick question, Kyle, on the board that's running ND Fit now, is it the same board when the schools come on board next fall?
The schools will be able to add 2 more people. So we already have 2 school district people. We have Mr. Hall from Kindred, and we have Mr. Friedland from St. John's. So there's 2 more positions. We have 7 board members and there's room for 9. And so we're waiting for the schools to come on, and then there'll be 2 additional people. Then once we get a full board, then we will stagger those terms so that everybody isn't coming on and off the board at the same time as we start to create more, what I'll say, policies and, you know, more structure underneath the organization on the operational side of things. Because as of right now, we have the agreement for the trust of what we'll follow from a legal standpoint, but some of those things need to be translated into more what I call a policy manual, or, for the organization. Again, at the guidance of the board, not the SEC. We will help them do the work, but they will have to make those decisions. So there'll be 4 school board members at the end of the day on that.
Is there a sort of the head of the organization then? Who would be considered the head?
So the president of the board is Brennan Quintus from Endorf. And so again, as we got this up and going, we needed to have a couple of members. And so that's where Mr. Hall came in from the SEC as the lead administrator for the SEC. We selected him, and then we needed somebody from the Endorf side. And so we select, Brennan Quintus is the CEO of Endorf. Everybody knows what Endorf is, the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. And so, I mean, imagine trying to get an organization started. You can't have a quorum right away, but you have to have, with the lawyer that we hired to get us off the ground, that's how we got it moved forward until we got the board formed. So Mr. Hall and Brennan Quintus were making what I'll call the initial decisions to get the board up and going.
Yeah. I think my last question on this is, I know it's the SEC has been, you've done a great job of spearheading this. And I think it's a welcome product for our schools. So once it's up and running in like a year or 2 years from now, what's the SEC's role going to be then after that's up and running?
Yes. So again, the reserve or the health insurance trust will always need an administrative manager. All right. That will never go away. All right. The trust is its own organization from a standpoint of banking and numbers and et cetera. And so as long as the SEC, as long as we're wanted by the board and we can come to an agreement on being the administrative manager, and the same would be true with the consultant, that board makes all the decisions for the organization. But my guess, I don't think there's any reason not to do it. We have all the knowledge and the understanding. I think it helps, as I'll talk a little bit later in some of the legislative updates, I'll tie this trust fund into some of the things where I think there's growth opportunities for the SEC long term. But again, from a board standpoint, I'm going to come and say, here's what we're going to continue to do it. If people don't think we should do that, or it's not worth the dollars, then the board has to have a conversation with me, but I'll just continue to make a case. But we have to do a quality job for the board of ND Fit to want us to continue to do it. That's a good question, Mitch.
Any other questions on the health insurance trust or the ancillary products? Seeing none, let's go on to innovation fund reporting.
So I'm going to let Jennifer Glasheen visit about that a little bit.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, Allison?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We just wanted to bring back, now I'm on camera. We just wanted to bring back in front of you, just kind of an update on where we're at with the Innovation Fund. We put together just a short form to collect information from the school districts on how they utilize the funds that they received in the fall through the Innovation Fund. And so just a simple short form that really asked, you know, what the need was, what the impact was. We recognize that there have been a lot of dollars that have been influx into the school districts. So we obviously have given the school districts plenty of time and latitude in terms of how they are able to use the dollars, but we presented it to the superintendents at the February 11th superintendent meeting, and they thought it looked pretty reasonable, quick, easy. And so we did put a projected timeline as far as trying to get those reports back from the school districts by June 15th, so that we can bring them in front of you guys as far as the board, as far as accountability for those dollars. So just so that you know that we kind of followed up with that. We've started to get a few in, and like I said, we gave people plenty of time here, and they can fill them out anytime. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Okay.
Any questions for Jennifer? Seeing none, thank you very much. On to new business, legislative update. And now keep in mind, Kyle, we're wanting to be done by 12:30.
No, so my legislative update is in relationship to bills that affect the SEC. So so keep that in mind. I'm just trying to focus on those things that could impact our work, and so I just wanted to let everybody know that House Bill 1013 did pass today. Kirsten's Department of Public Instruction bill. Just some things in there that are good for the SEC or that are just neutral, you know, is we continue to get a $500,000 divided by 7 REAs. So that base funding is still there in the bill in Section 8. The dyslexia pilot program in there is continuing. So we've been involved in that in a group of people from the Kindred phone or the Kindred school district, and not directly, but I'm glad to see that dyslexia pilot was still in the bill. Something's been added. It's called school health technicians, and that's new to me. Again, you have to keep in mind, and I've said this in other meetings that I've attended with people that are here. I don't pay attention to any of the House things. There's so many things in the Senate that we just, until they come over, we don't have to worry about them. They're not law until we get to look at them. So I don't know where that school health technician bill is going, but that could be training or potential services or potential help that an REA could provide. So that's something that we'll be looking at where that came from. Does anybody have a comment on where that came from or what it's trying to address? I really don't know, but there's a certificate for a school health technician that was in that bill, added to the bill for a credential. The other thing that came up in there that I thought was interesting was the school counselor language has been changed in there. So somebody must have been frustrated that they thought that counselors were doing too much assessment of the ACT and stuff. So there's some language in there that tries to narrow down the scope of a school counselor. So you might want to review that. Again, from an SEC perspective, you know, those are just things we're keeping an eye out on in regards to behavioral health and career opportunities, you know, helping kids understand more about career opportunities. In section, that was in section 18, the school counselor language being changed. In section 19 of that bill was sharing of administrators. There's a long section in there that talks about getting dollars back if you share administrators and a business manager, whether it's 2 schools, 3 schools, 4 schools, and then there's a sliding scale of dollars. And why that is important, and it may not necessarily be as important to us out here in the SEC, but when you get out into Bismarck and to Williston and even in the Northeast, an REA could step in there and hire a superintendent and a business manager and to help those schools and help them collaborate. So again, that's favorable language, I guess, when it comes over to the Senate side of it. If people are still interested in keeping that in there, I haven't heard much about it. I think it's a good idea personally. I would like to see special education units added into that process. But again, that was just a thought I had as I looked at the bill today. So those are the things that I picked out of the Department of Public Instruction that could impact the SEC, and not negatively, but positively. I think collaboration, efficiency, effectiveness, is an ongoing theme out there. But one person's efficiency is another person's control, so you never know how that all works out. The other thing is I think the human service bill, I was trying to check this morning. I was just trying to make sure that our $3 million stayed in the bill for our school health grants, our behavioral health grants, and that's with the matching Medicaid. The human services bill as of Friday night was still sitting in committee, and it didn't come out till actually yesterday. And so I haven't got a text message back. So I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but again, that $3 million was in there. And then again, it's the ongoing COVID dollars. The SEC, we have asked for dollars for after school programs that were impacted because of the student teacher ratio, the spacing, the numbers, the revenue. And then we identified some other smaller things. And so as far as carryover dollars and dollars that were returned versus new dollars that they pulled out of, they added to, I think the bill number it's either 1394 or 1388. That's where they added all the COVID dollars. And again, from an SEC perspective, that really just impacts our schools, but there could be potential dollars there that schools use for professional development or things that we could work collaboratively with to help them roll out. So those are just really some things that I wrote down just to let people know. Oh, the $200,000 for our Reading Corps program. When we talk about our budgets for next year, that was one thing we had in red that we were a little bit worried about, and we didn't know how that got rolled into the commerce budget on the Senate side. And so that's alive and well in the House. So we'll follow that in the House, and that's to expand our Reading Corps program. And to continue to do that, as we know, that's already in many schools in the SEC, and always looking for opportunities to expand that program. So any other questions about anything? I just wanted to touch on some things that kind of tie into the budget discussion as we move forward. I think overall for schools and everybody, we're only in period 1 of a 3-period hockey game. So I feel like there's some goofy things out there that we need to try to settle, but all in all, I thought turned out okay. If all you do is read the paper, it gets a little scary. So.
Well, let's move on to budget discussion then.
So as we talked about in December, I just wanted to give everybody an update on the budget. We had started to outline, we had started to outline and project our budget going forward in 2021 and 2022, and talked about some of the revenues and some of the challenges with some grant funding ending and stuff. And so we're kind of, despite some of the PD and some of the dollars that we generated from PD and from our conference and not having those this year, we're pretty much on target. And so from the budget standpoint, what we're looking as we move forward is to hire some of those positions. A couple things. So as we've talked earlier, and I probably should have, and this is part of the whole conversation, and if there are any questions about it, Brenna can address it. But we have told Mapleton that we are no longer wanting to be their business manager. And so we started that conversation back in December, and I can't remember if I told you that in December or if I was going to wait, but they are in the process of currently hiring a principal. I think they've identified who they're interviewing, and we've indicated to them, and I think Brenna's actually getting the job description, kind of helping them put it together, that we will step away from that. There may be a case for us to do their payroll and some of their benefits. But for sure we won't be doing it was a good experience for us. We learned a lot. But being a school district's business manager is a whole lot different than just running their payroll and doing some of their support services in regards to benefits and just payroll. It's just a whole nother level of responsibility, which I don't think we need to be in the middle of. They're our member, and we're here to do support services, and that's probably a little too major of a role. So any questions about that? Brenna, is there anything? Was I good on that? Where that's at?
Yep.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. And so go ahead.
Our contract goes till June 30th with them, but they're gonna look to hire while I'm still kind of around.
Yeah. So we can have some kind of transitional kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the other piece of that we're just, as we see what happened in the DPI bill and the whole superintendent business manager thing, one of the things potentially with doing the health insurance thing that comes back to it with the health insurance and being the administrator for that and the ancillary products, is the opportunity to do payroll services and those kinds of things and expand that area. That isn't something that we're doing aggressively right now. We have enough going on just with the health insurance, but potentially long term, over the next year or two, it kind of all fits together, especially for smaller schools, as we're finding that some of them are really struggling to find what I'll say higher quality business managers. There's more and more hiccups happening around the state and I don't want to just say smaller schools, but they tend to be a little bit smaller, but there's some medium-sized schools that are having some of the same hiccups. So, we see the insurance side of things being a long-term play in regards to supporting schools with some of those, again, payroll services and that may come up. And so just from a budget standpoint, so as we talked about earlier, we have a PD position that we're going to put out there for, potentially 2 PD positions. We do need to have somebody to help us with the health insurance side of things. So there's a position there. And so that's really where we are from a budget standpoint moving into next year. I mean, we're writing a couple federal grants that are about $2.5 million. Each one of these grants, there's a lot of COVID dollars. If our state gets somebody texted me today, $4 billion. I don't know what we're going to do with $4 billion, but there's only some, I don't know, 300-400 million comes to schools and how that all is going to work out. But, from a budget standpoint on the short term, I think, I think we're looking good going forward. As far as the foundation aid and the dollars we get from the state, we may be a little shorter with some of the schools that homeschooled a lot of kids and may have a dip in enrollment and stuff, but that's $10,000, $15,000 here or there. So I don't, excuse me. And then next year again, then at the end of the year in June, I think hopefully we'll be able to bring our conference back. And our conference was a big part of what we did, for 10, 11 years in regards to our MTSS conference. So hopefully that'll come back not this June, but next June. So any questions regarding, budget and moving forward? There's still a lot of moving variables, just like with your school districts. I mean, the goal is to get 1-on-1 for school districts. I feel pretty good about that unless they shut down the DAPL pipeline and people start to go in a panic. The DAPL pipeline shutting down will cost the state about $160 million a year, and it'll cost the tribes about $41 million a year if DAPL shuts down. So that might set a panic into some people. So those are the kinds of big things that are not predictable that will have an impact on the final numbers.
Any budget questions for Kyle? Super. Moving on, the next topic is executive director evaluation. It's that time of year again. So one of the things I would like to do is get a couple people to agree to serve on the committee again with me to review the surveys that are going to come back in regarding Kyle's performance and ultimately put forward a recommendation for the board's consideration. So I'll start by just seeing if there are any volunteers that would like to serve on that evaluation committee. Well, let me try this one more time.
Jim, this
which
is
of
Heidi.
you plan on volunteering?
Jim, this is Heidi. You can put my name down.
Thank you, Heidi. Corey, can I use you again?
Yeah, I've done it before. I'll do it again.
Super. Well, Corey, Heidi, and I will serve as the committee that reviews everything and bring back a recommendation, most likely at our May board meeting. Two pieces of information that hopefully Allison would be the person I'll work with on this. We had that survey that we did a year ago to board members. I'd kind of like to get that out to all of the board members to look at before we complete it in case there's any suggestions on changes to questions, if that's possible, Allison. And then this is a big ask of you, Steve. I would like you to look at it because I'd like to, instead of just having the board complete a survey this year on Kyle, I'd also like to go out to our administrative group and get their feedback for Kyle. So I'm hoping, Steve, you could look at it and kind of look at it from a superintendent's perspective and see, are there questions we should adapt differently for the superintendents? Because I think that would be some valuable feedback, not only for Kyle and for us as a board, but for the whole organization. We had talked a year ago about possibly also having staff do this, and so I've done a little studying on what we call 360 reviews, and I'll be real honest, the more I've dug into them, the less I think it's a good idea. They tend to ultimately create culture problems inside organizations, and as a general rule, what I've been finding is it's probably better if there's an open channel for staff that have concerns about an executive director's performance to reach out directly to a board member, the board president or any board member, as opposed to trying to do a 360 review once a year. So again, I actually think, and staff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think generally our staff has a very good working relationship with Kyle. I think he's open and listening to them, but I do want to just stress to all the staff members, if there ever is a concern that you've brought to Kyle and you don't think it's being addressed properly, bring it to me as board president currently or whoever the next board president is. Ideally, our role as a board is to supervise Kyle. Kyle's role is to run the organization. So I'm going to try and keep the board out of the weeds of the organization, much like when I'm operating in my school district. The superintendent is in charge of the staff, and we're in charge of the superintendent. And I think that governance model serves school districts well, and I think it would serve this organization well too. Steve, are you willing to look at it from the administrative eye perspective?
Certainly could help. Yep.
Thanks. Any other thoughts, concerns? Well, seeing none, I think that'll be our game plan. Allison, if you'd send that out to all of us to kind of review. And I know we're all busy, but if you could hopefully get that back to Allison with any suggestions you have within a 2-week time period. I'm kind of hoping that by mid to end of March, we can send the survey out to both administrators and board members, give them a couple weeks to get it back, so we have it back in plenty of time to review before May 5th. And Corey, I just noticed this. Did you pick up something new during the COVID era?
A little bit, yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah, the mask keeps it covered, so my wife doesn't say much yet.
Well, some of us can't grow it, so.
Last thing on our agenda is just an update on our board meetings. Our next one is scheduled for May 5th, and at this point in time, we're still planning on that being a Zoom meeting. Perhaps this summer, if vaccinations pick up, we can get together for a board retreat. But if not, we'll continue to use technology to the best of our abilities. Anything else anybody has before we adjourn? Again, I want to thank you all for your time today and for your service on the SEEC board. And I particularly want to thank the all-star staff of the SEEC, who every day is doing incredible things for the school districts that are our members and the children that they serve. Thank you, thank you, thank you.